Good evening and welcome to Global Lens News. I'm Sadia Afzal. For decades, one assumption shaped American policy in the Middle East: protect Israel at all costs. No matter the administration, no matter the crisis, no matter the consequences, Washington's strategic compass almost always pointed in the same direction. But today, something appears to be changing. In the beautiful Swiss mountain resort of Bürgenstock, American and Iranian negotiators are sitting across the table from one another in what could become one of the most consequential diplomatic efforts of recent years. And the biggest story may not be what Iran wants. It may be what America has finally realized. Because after years of wars, regional instability, diplomatic isolation, and growing international criticism, many observers believe the latest conflict has forced Washington to confront an uncomfortable question. Has America paid too high a price for policies that have been driven primarily by the interests of others rather than its own? The question hangs over every conversation taking place in Bürgenstock. The talks are officially about reducing tensions between the United States and Iran. They involve discussions surrounding sanctions, regional security, economic cooperation, maritime stability, and the future of relations between two countries that have spent more than 4 decades treating each other as enemies. But beneath the official agenda lies a much bigger story. A story about a changing Middle East, a story about shifting alliances, and a story about an America that may be reassessing its role in a region where military power has repeatedly failed to produce lasting peace. For years, Washington viewed Iran primarily through the lens of confrontation. Sanctions were imposed, pressure campaigns were launched, military threats were exchanged. Yet, despite all of this, Iran remained a major regional player. Meanwhile, the Middle East became increasingly unstable. Conflict spread, proxy wars intensified, economic costs mounted, and ordinary people across the region paid the price. The latest regional crisis only deepened these questions. While Israel entered the confrontation determined to strengthen its strategic position, many analysts now argue that the outcome has been far more complicated. Instead of emerging stronger, Israel has faced growing diplomatic challenges, increasing international criticism, and rising questions about the long-term sustainability of its security strategy. Its image in many parts of the world has suffered. Its relationships with some international partners have become more strained, and the conflict has demonstrated that military superiority alone cannot eliminate political realities. That is why a growing number of voices inside Washington are asking difficult questions. Not whether America should support Israel, but whether unconditional support for every Israeli policy serves American interests. That is a significant distinction. The debate is no longer about abandoning an ally. The debate is about defining the limits of that alliance. How much should American taxpayers pay? How much diplomatic capital should Washington spend? How many regional crises should the United States inherit? And perhaps most importantly, does endless confrontation make America safer? For the first time in years, parts of the American political establishment appear increasingly willing to consider alternatives. That does not mean Washington is turning against Israel. Far from it. The United States remains Israel's closest and most powerful ally. But it does suggest that many policymakers now believe diplomacy deserves another chance. That is where Iran enters the picture. The Bürgenstock Talks represent more than a negotiation between two adversaries. They represent an attempt to test whether dialogue can succeed where confrontation has failed, whether diplomacy can deliver what sanctions and threats could not, whether stability can be achieved through engagement rather than escalation. And that is why these talks matter far beyond Washington and Tehran. Because the consequences of success could be enormous. Reduced tensions could help stabilize energy markets. The risk of military confrontation could decrease. Trade routes could become more secure, and the Middle East could begin moving away from perpetual crisis management towards something resembling long-term stability. But there is another country whose role deserves attention: Pakistan. While global headlines focus on America and Iran, Pakistan has quietly emerged as an important facilitator in this diplomatic process. For years, Pakistan has maintained relationships with both Washington and Tehran. Unlike many countries in the region, Islamabad has been able to keep communication channels open with both sides. That unique position has given Pakistan an opportunity to contribute where larger powers often struggle. Alongside Qatar, Pakistan has helped create space for dialogue and engagement. This is significant not only for the negotiations themselves, but also for Pakistan's international standing. For too long, Pakistan has been viewed primarily through the lens of security challenges and regional instability. Today, it is increasingly being recognized for its diplomatic potential. The ability to bring adversaries to the table is one of the most valuable assets in international politics. And in Bürgenstock, Pakistan has demonstrated that middle powers can still play meaningful roles in resolving major global disputes. Of course, nobody should underestimate the challenges ahead. Decades of mistrust cannot disappear overnight. Political opposition exists on both sides. Regional actors are watching carefully. A single incident could derail progress. History is filled with negotiations that began with optimism and ended in disappointment. Yet, there is something different about this moment. The Middle East is changing. Global power balances are shifting, and many leaders appear increasingly aware that endless cycles of conflict benefit nobody. Not America, not Iran, not Israel, not the wider region. Perhaps that is the real significance of Bürgenstock. Not simply that America and Iran are talking, but that Washington may finally be reconsidering assumptions that have guided its Middle East policy for generations. The realization that military power has limits, the realization that diplomacy is not weakness, and the realization that lasting stability requires dialogue, even with adversaries. Whether these talks succeed or fail remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The conversations taking place in the mountains of Switzerland could shape the future of the Middle East for years to come. And if history records Bürgenstock as a turning point, it may not be because America and Iran found common ground. It may be because the United States finally decided that the future cannot be built on endless wars, and that even the oldest enemies must eventually learn to talk.